So we're going to talk about Aaron Rodgers of signing with the Steelers. And this is really the only option. Not like he has plenty of other options to go to other teams. This is relatively it. The only other option maybe is the New Orleans Saints, but they are set with the quarterbacks they have. So it is the Pittsburgh or nothing. That's all it is. And this whole delay of signing there and waiting and all these antics is I'm sick of it. And I just posted this just a second ago. So Aaron Rodgers needs to make a decision on Pittsburgh. I'm sick of him dragging this out and making it more about him. Either you want to play or not. As well as for Pittsburgh side of it, Pittsburgh can't be scared to stand up and give Rodgers a deadline or say no. And this is the problem for both sides. I think, unfortunately, it's for Pittsburgh too, is that blame, because I think they are, I don't want to say scared. Maybe that is going a little overboard with it, but they need to make a deadline, or they need to stand up to Rodgers and say, you either sign by the end of the week, or whatever you want to say, you either sign with us or you don't. And they need to have the confidence to just move on and forget about him. This is what the Steelers need to do. And I know what they have right now isn't enticing with Mason Rudolph and Will Howard, who drafted in the 6th round this past draft, but at some point in time, it has to be enough with this. For Aaron Rodgers, I'm sick of the whole games he plays. And this kind of goes back to a little bit before he got traded to the Jets as well. There was a little bit of back and forth to that too. It was delayed as well, probably later than we expected him to be moved to the Jets, when it seemed like that was the quite obvious, similar to Pittsburgh, not in the same way of trade versus signing with the team. But it's getting to a point where enough's enough. Like, he needs to make a decision. I don't think he needs any more time to figure out what he needs to do in his career. Either he wants to play or he doesn't. There's no other teams that are going after him and having a bidding war. This is it. This is not the elite back-to-back MVP Aaron Rodgers we had a few years ago. This is a older Aaron Rodgers, where he is still good. And last year I was pushed back, and he did put up good numbers. But if you want to look at the team success-wise, the Jets did horrible, and they fell flat, and they fell very short of expectations of what the Jets were perceived as before the season started, as opposed to the outcome of it, where there was talks of playoff contenders, or some people were going as far as, dare I say, Super Bowl contenders. And again, fell very flat in that regard. And he put up good stats, I think respectable ones, but if you're looking for the reflection of the outcome for the team's success, it was horrible. Wasn't even close to making the playoffs, and new regime there, and they've decided to move off of Aaron Rodgers. So there is no other teams begging him to go there. I'm sorry, there isn't. Most other places are locked up besides the Pittsburgh Steelers. And for Rodgers, he needs to make a decision. I don't see the big difference for his perspective, with the big difference of signing a month ago as opposed to, let's say, this next week. What does he really gain from this? He could have just signed it all the way from the beginning, and he could have done whatever. No one's making him go to camp right now. No one's making him go to anything. He could have just signed a month ago and still do what he's doing. So I don't get this delay. He's just hurting himself. I think more so just learn the playbook, trying to get things for him, trying to learn the system better. I think that's what's just hurting him. Is he's coming? I worry that he's coming into a situation where he waits, and it's going to be detrimental to him. Now, I'm not saying that it's detrimental to him, but it could hurt him. I'm not saying it's not going to be a complete collapse where it's like he can't learn anything. It's going to take him forever. He's a smart guy. He will pick it up very quickly, but I think it's just more the principle of just waiting to the deadline, to the very last minute of signing with a team, and making a whole spectacle about it. And that's what I just don't like about Aaron Rodgers. A phenomenal player, no doubt about that. First ballot Hall of Famer, amazing quarterback. Personality wise, he sucks. And there's been plenty of former players that come out that have talked against him about how he is not a leader, not a great teammate. He seems self-centered. He acts like he's the smartest person in the room. That's how he always is. I mean, and you see that too in the post-game interviews. Always how he talks, and when he's on the Pat McAfee show. So again, it's always something with Aaron Rodgers. But I also blame the teams that enable him to do that. And the Packers allowed that. I think for the longest time, even though at that time he was an elite quarterback, he was a phenomenal quarterback. So there is some leniency with that. But towards the end, and with the Jets' tenure, and now with the Pittsburgh Steelers, it just seems like you have, at least for these next two teams, if he does sign with the Steelers, for the Jets and the Steelers, it's desperate teams that need a quarterback that will do anything. They'll take the Aaron Rodgers show. They'll deal with the consequences of it. And you saw again reflect with the Jets of how it was run. this past year, it was horrible. The GM got fired, the coach got fired, the quarterback eventually got released or moved off of, I should say. So you look at that, and for Steelers, he's going in a similar situation where it's everyone loves to talk about Mike Tomlin, love to have him as a coach, love to play under him, but it seems like he allows characters on there and he allows antics on there, especially the wide receiver room, which they just got rid of George Pickens, but you have someone a little bit similar in DK Metcalf, who also has some baggage, not as much as George Pickens, but a little bit in DK Metcalf and what he did with the Seahawks. So now you bring someone else in there, and with Aaron Rodgers, who we know how he is. I'm not saying he's antics on the sidelines or controversies off the field, that or trouble off the field with the ball or anything like that. Nothing of that nature, but it's just more of like just how he talks, how he acts. A couple articles I did see here with a former Steelers player with Steve Nelson took to Instagram to bash Aaron Rodgers and say the Steelers need to go in a different direction. Nelson called Rodgers washed on an Instagram story and said the future Hall of Famer doesn't care about the team. Washed, Nelson said, and he doesn't give a damn. I'm sorry. Hall of Fame though, give that money to someone else. Steelers have reportedly offered Rodgers a 1-year contract, but he has yet to agree on any terms. Nelson played only 2 years with the Steelers there from 19 to 20. And also, too, another one is part of kind of the Steelers being held hostage, if you do believe in this, with the Steelers not going after wide receivers because they are waiting on Aaron Rodgers. That is how big that's how it always is. And that's how it was with the Jets, where Rodgers had a list of basically demands of players he wanted signed, and they brought in some players from the Packers, Allen Lazard, Randall Cobb. There's a couple others I may have missed, but those are the two at the top of the list there. Another one he wanted to bring in was Odell Beckham, which didn't fall through or didn't go through with that. They didn't sign that for their part, thankfully, because he hasn't really done anything since that time. But there was all these demands of players that he wanted. With I shouldn't say a ton of players, but some former friends from the team, from the Packers. But those are the top two, is like Allen Lazard, Randall Cobb, and these are other players that he wanted the Jets to go after. They're kind of a list of demands in a way before signing with the team. And I don't know if this is the same thing with this one about the Steelers. There was reports of rumors that maybe they might trade for or go after, if he's released, Allen Lazard because of if Aaron Rodgers goes there. So this is another thing too on the the Steelers chat on the Pittsburgh Post Gazette, if I said it right. Insider Ray Fipilato was asked why the Steelers haven't signed the veteran wide receiver like Keenan Allen or Gabe Davis, and his answer is nothing short of disappointing. Here's what he had to say on the Steelers delaying the addition of a veteran wideout. I think they eventually sign another wide receiver, but I think they want to wait to see what Rodgers does. Is Keenan Allen a good fit for him in this offense? I honestly don't know the answer to that question, but Rodgers wants his receivers to be very detailed. Maybe Allen would be a good fit, or maybe Gabe Davis. But I don't think the move happens until the Steelers know what's going on with Rodgers. Again, it's always something with Rodgers. It's always something to the story. It can't just be as simple, here's a contract, sign it, we're done, we can move on and focus on the future of this upcoming season. We got to play it out, we got to do this and that, and it's very frustrating for the Steelers being almost in a way like the Jets, like held hostage, because they just seem so they're putting all their eggs in this basket to sign Aaron Rodgers, because I don't want to say they're scared to move off, but it feels like that. To me, they're not standing up to Rodgers and giving him a deadline. They're allowing him to play these games and push us even further. There should be a deadline. Listen, you either sign now or you don't sign with us, and we move on with Mason Rudolph and Will Howard. Again, is that enticing for Steelers fans to see this upcoming season? Probably not. And I'm sure if you roll with those two quarterbacks throughout the whole season, that will the wild card is Will Howard. We'll see how he is, if he does play or when he plays this upcoming season. If they do like I said, they do go with these two quarterbacks for the season, you're not looking at a playoff season. I'm sorry. This might be the first year. If these two quarterbacks again if they play it out the whole season, this may be the first season in the Mike Tomlin era where you have a losing record, or at the very least and unfortunately you can't go 8-8 anymore. I'm sorry, you can't break even. So you gotta be 9-8 or 8-9. So with that, I mean there's a good chance again if rolling with these two quarterbacks that you may have a losing record, and that who knows what happens afterwards. I mean, not to say Mike Tomlin gets fired because of that, but I mean you just don't know how it's going to be with Tomlin having potentially a losing record with these two. So, but you have to have the backbone. You have to have the courage to stand up to Aaron Rodgers and say, you know what, you played too many games, you wasted too much time. You either sign with us or you don't. I think he should have signed way before the NFL draft, and we're still here talking about it. And we're gonna be talking about it a couple weeks from now. We're probably gonna be talking about it a month from now. And it's very upsetting. It's very frustrating to see Aaron Rodgers with how he acts, because I don't think he has that power per se anymore. He's a good quarterback still, but he's not the elite back-to-back MVP quarterback he was a few years ago. And that's it's unfortunate he plays these games, because again, he is a fantastic player. It's just his personality sucks. I mean, that's what it comes down to. So we'll see what happens in the near future, if or when he signs with the Steelers. I'll put a poll later to ask you guys, like, if you think that he'll sign with the Pittsburgh Steelers or not.